This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Ebright Creek Fish Passage Project public meeting. My name is Stephanie Sullivan. I am the project manager and I serve as the city's associate stormwater engineer. So today I am joined by Laura Rupert with Osborne Consulting, who is the project manager for the project's consultant team. Thank you so much for taking precious time out of your schedules to join us tonight. I'm excited to share with you about the project which we have been working on for the past year. My hope for today is that you will come away with an understanding of what this project will accomplish, why it's important, what you can expect during construction, and give you an opportunity to submit your thoughts and have some time for questions. If at the end of this presentation you would like a personal follow-up, please either send myself or the moderator, Toby, your contact information, or you may also email or call me personally. My contact information is available on the project webpage. During this presentation, I will tell you a little bit about kokanee salmon. Then I will review the project background and goals. Laura will discuss the project timeline, provide a high-level overview of the design, and give you some idea of what to expect during construction. Lastly, we'll have some time for questions. We worked to include a lot of photos in this presentation, most of which were taken during the Zaku Creek Fish Passage project. We believe this will help you visualize what to expect during the Ebright Creek project. So, why are we doing this project? This photo shows kokanee salmon, often referred to as the little red fish. Historically, the estimated population returns of the little red fish in Lake Sammamish was in the tens of thousands. But today the returns average just 1/10 of that in the hundreds. This fish is an important ecological and cultural resource. The kokanee provided food and recreational resources to all that lived near the watershed. So returning kokanee to Lake Sammamish is truly a collaborative effort across the region. So why is Ebright Creek so important? Well, Ebright Creek is one of the few primary spawning tributaries for kokanee and has good characteristics for kokanee spawning, so like nice gravel and a shallow slope. Over the years, the city has been working with the Lake Sammamish Kokanee Work Group, Trout Unlimited, Mid-Sound Fisheries, and King County to learn more about kokanee and help increase their population. Through our time together, we have learned that the kokanee have a 3-year life cycle. Kokanee fry come to life in the creeks, and then they migrate downstream to Lake Sammamish. They spend 3 summers living and feeding in the lake. Then finally, they return to spawn in the creek and the next generation begins. So this life cycle is why removing barriers between Lake Sammamish and the upstream habitat is so important. We believe that this will give the kokanee the opportunity to thrive once again. The circles shown on this slide depict the timeline of how the project was identified and incorporated into the city's work plan. So back in 2014, the Lake Sammamish Kokanee Work Group produced the Kokanee Blueprint, which identified Ebright Creek, Fish Passage Barrier, and others for removal as priority improvements. In 2016, the City Council adopted the Storm and Surface Water Comprehensive Plan, which included fish passage and kokanee restoration as priority action items. Following that plan, the city completed the Zaku Creek Fish Passage project in 2018, and soon after initiated the Ebright Creek Fish Passage project. You may be aware we are also pursuing the George Davis Creek Fish Passage project, which is just north of Ebright Creek. A little further north than Zaku, so. So these photos show what the roads and the culverts look like now. The star there on the slide depicts the inlet side. So the creek runs under East Lake Sammamish Parkway from east to west toward Lake Sammamish. The existing culverts are considered a partial fish passage barrier. And there you go as an arrow. It's hard when you're not actually there to describe how the creek goes under the road. But so above and below the road surface, you'll also notice that there are utilities like water, sewer, gas, and electric, which we need to work with during construction. So overall, our goal is to remove the existing culverts on Ebright Creek and replace them with a fish passable box culvert. You'll see a photo later in the presentation that depicts what that might look like. In addition, our project will enhance the stream and riparian habitat by adding woody debris, habitat boulders, and native plantings. We are working to minimize impacts to neighbors and the environment and provide a long-term solution for fish passage. To achieve this, our consultant has followed best practices, design guidelines, and used stakeholder input, like coordinating with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, just to name a few. I will also note that King County is continuing their work on the trail project, the East Lake Sammamish Regional Trail, and they are planning to remove their fish passage barrier just downstream of our project in 2022. So this is somewhat different than the Zacus Creek project, if you're familiar, where the trail and the parkway were under construction at the same time. Now I will let Laura Rupert, our consultant project manager, talk more about the project timing, design details, and what you could expect during construction.
All right, starting with the timeline, we kicked this project off end of 2019, and we're currently close to wrapping up the design phase. We have finished our 90% design. We're almost at 100% complete. We have our in-water work permits, and we're still in negotiations, coordinations with King County to get some access permits, and then we'll be all set. Our 100% design should be done in end of January so that we can be ready to go out to bid in the spring. Today we're doing out at the public meeting, and it may seem late in design. We did coordination with the adjacent property owners earlier during design, and we focused this greater community outreach now so that we can really prep you for what to expect during construction. I mentioned we will plan on advertising and the project in the springtime, and construction will happen in the summer, and the in-water work window is July through September. So we should have everything wrapped up and ready to go before the fall winter kokanee run. On the design side, it's kind of a busy slide, but we can step through a number of design elements as the prompts come up. So first in red, this is where the existing culverts are, which will be completely removed. Then in green, this is the new culvert. It's 14 feet wide, 9 feet high. Those are the inside dimensions. It's a precast concrete box culvert. Upstream of the culvert, we are doing some channel realignments to tie the channel into the new culvert with a more natural alignment, using wood to provide both habitat and bank protection. And carefully design this to meet and be similar to the upstream and downstream project. Worked with King County to make sure we tie in well with them. Through the culvert, we have meander bars, which are a coarser material that will help maintain some channel sinuosity and diversity through the culvert. And as we move outside of the culvert, we have more large woody debris for both bank protection and habitat. And let's see, I already mentioned transition to the King County project. Yes, those are the main elements there. We've had good coordination with King County, which has been great, sharing design files and everything. So we're confident in how those two channels will come together. And sediment is another piece I'll mention. In addition to the more quantitative analysis, we also included a geomorphologist on the team to walk the site and do a qualitative assessment to make sure that we're really taking into account and designing a system that will be able to transport similarly to the upstream and downstream reaches. All right, for construction sequencing, there will be some initial site prep and erosion control to protect the channel during the work time. There will be the stream bypass installed, and some initial utility relocations. A lot of this can be done with a partial road closure. I'll get more specific to the road closures in a couple slides. We'll do a full closure for the culvert installation, and then the road can be reopened up for finished grading, planting, things like that. So the stream bypass and the utility work will go in first, and this can happen with some partial closure. The picture here shows work from Zaccoose Creek. The stream bypass is kind of that orangey pipe that you see. It's flexible, which allows you to kind of move it around to avoid where you're doing the work. The black pipe that you see there, that is a sewer temporary relocation. So there'll be some temporary work to make sure that stuff is out of the way during construction. There'll be some permanent work like with the water line. So that will all occur. Much of it can happen during a partial closure. Other thing that you can see here in this picture, there are some steel plates on the roadway. Some of that may be used by the contractor to create a safe driving surface during some of the work that's happening during partial closures. The full closure will happen when the culvert's installed. It's going to be a big, deep excavation. The culvert inside dimensions are 9 feet, and when you account for the culvert thickness and base materials, you're looking at a hole that's over 14 feet deep. The culvert is precast, so it will come in pieces like you see here. This is the Zaccoose Creek culvert. Ours will look similar, so they can just be picked and set pretty quickly. It's important that they close the road for this type of work because with the limited road width here, it really allows you to both do the work faster, but also place those middle precast pieces that go in the middle of the road where you wouldn't necessarily have room to route a travel lane around them. The traffic control, I was talking a little bit about, both full road closure and the partial lane closures. And the full road closure was approved by council a couple weeks ago. There's a link to the end of the presentation if you're curious to watch more about that council meeting. And let's see, let's go to the next slide. For the duration of the culvert construction, the full road closure is up to 3 weeks. So hopefully that should be more than enough time. We mentioned the George Davis closure also because there's a chance that the two projects could occur during the same summer, and they would have similar in-water work windows. So that could happen, both closures at the same time. And that possibility is considered in the detour routes that Stephanie will talk about a little bit later. For the partial road closure, this would be as needed intermittent single lane closures and considered trying to, do you do just partial road closure for the whole project? And in addition to the width constriction, the full closure really cuts the construction duration overall. So it felt like the faster way to have less impact overall. And with that, I will go back to Stephanie to talk about the detour routes.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate that. So these are a few options of the detour routes that would be or could be used during the full closure. They're the same as were used for the Zaccoose Creek project, and the contractor will put together a plan and the city would ultimately review and have to approve that plan. And so we're interested in your thoughts and comments on that. So if you have any input you'd like to share, feel free to put that in the chat and we will take that into consideration when we're looking at that plan. As Laura mentioned, the George Davis Creek project is possibly going to be constructed at the same time. So the George Davis Creek detours would also accommodate Ebright Creek in that you would end up driving 228 to Inglewood. And then anyone in between, so north of Ebright Creek or south of George Davis Creek would end up being detoured up Lewis Thompson Road. So that's how that would work. Lastly, I would like to recognize the contributions of the groups and individuals all involved in helping make this project happen. So the Sammamish City Council for their dedication and support to improving fish passage in the city. We are grateful for the financial contributions from the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board and the King County Flood Control District. The Kokanee Work Group for their stewardship and help to improve the health and native Lake Sammamish Kokanee population. And finally, our partners, including the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, Recreation and Conservation Office, King County, their consultant parametrics, Sammamish Plateau Water, and many others. With that, Toby, if you could go ahead and summarize any questions we've gotten, that would be great.
At this point, we don't have any questions really. Yeah, if you want to type them in, that's great. Otherwise, I can unmute you and you can ask the old-fashioned way. Yeah, we're here for questions, so please let us know.
I'm going to stop the recording